A huge news post just dropped detailing all of the changes to the Ek-ZekKil, Fractured Staff of Armadyl, Tectonic, Elite Tectonic, and the Masterwork weapons that are all tier 100 in ranged, magic, and melee. And I want to take a quick bit of time and go over those changes for you right now. This one's going to be a bit of a one-taker because I'm about to go away for the weekend, but I wanted to talk about these changes because they are absolutely meta-changing. So first off, let's start things off with the Ek-ZekKil. Since its release, the Ek-ZekKil has been a bit of an interesting weapon, and not in a good way, because the best way to use it was to put it in an Essence of Finality amulet, and you basically only use it for the special attack. You would never actually see a player wielding it or using it, and for a tier 95 legendary weapon, that felt a little bit weird. So the changes to it are as follows. So the first big change is that the special attack of the Ek-ZekKil, which was actually very good and powerful, has been completely removed and replaced with a new special attack called Igneous Showdown. This new special attack has a 1-minute cooldown, costs 65% adrenaline, and it draws inspiration from the dramatic duels that Zuk himself has faced, reinforcing the weapon's identity and thematic roots. So this marks your target for a fiery duel, and it deals between 230 and 270% melee damage, which is moderate, but for the adren cost, not a ton of damage. The average damage on this initially is not a whole lot, but if you use it on a target that is already marked, all of a sudden your average damage is going to go up from 250% all the way to 400, which is quite a bit more and definitely better value for the adren cost. But far more interestingly, as soon as you use it on a target, it's going to apply Flame-Bound Rival. You're going to deal 5% additional damage against the target, and you're also going to take 5% less damage against the target. This seems like an interesting special attack because on a longer term fight, it's going to be extremely beneficial to use this special attack early on and then reap the benefits for the entire rest of the boss fight. It's worth noting though that when something is marked as your Flame-Bound Rival, it looks like it's only going to apply to attacks from the Ek-ZekKil itself, so you can't just cast it and then switch to other weapons and get the 5%. At the same time, if you switch off of the Ek-ZekKil, you're not going to lose the effect. You're just going to not get the damage boost until you put the Ek-ZekKil back on and use more abilities with the Ek-ZekKil. In terms of special attacks, this is an interesting one. I think thematically it makes perfect sense, but it might be a little bit undertuned compared to how powerful the original special attack on the Ek-ZekKil was. At the same time, it's definitely an interesting design, and I'm curious to see how it plays when it comes out. But we're not quite done with the Ek-ZekKil yet, because in addition, there is a brand new passive that has been added, and it's called Ashen Vow. And while active, what it's going to do is it's going to buff 3 of your abilities. First off, it's going to make the ultimate ability Pulverize cost 60% adrenaline instead of 100%. This is a really big change because Pulverize is a seldom used ability, but it actually provides a huge damage reduction, and it's a really strong ability, but nobody uses it because of the adrenaline cost. Bringing down the base adren cost to 60%, when you combine that with things like Conservation of Energy, the Ring of Vigor passive, and the adren refund from Vestments of Havoc gear, you could potentially be seeing people using Pulverize, which is a powerful damage dealing ability that also provides you damage reduction of 25% for 30 whole seconds at a total adrenaline cost of 20%. So basically, Pulverize has gone from something that is not worth using to something that you could see yourself using, whether you're melee camping or in a sustained boss fight, very frequently. I was thinking about the Zamorak fight, where if you have someone who's meleeing on your team, that's going to benefit the entire group. And now everyone on the team is going to take 25% reduced damage every time they're able to use Pulverize. The second ability that's upgraded is Quake, and instead of giving you 2 affinity, it's going to give you 4 instead. So it's effectively doubly good in terms of increasing your hit chance. This can be very useful at bosses where you don't have good hit chance, and you also don't want to bother using a Statius Warhammer swap. But in general, Quake already wasn't a massively used ability, and in a lot of instances, this isn't going to make it much better. This is definitely one of the more underwhelming effects, but it does have some niche uses, and it's taking a terrible ability and making it a little bit better. To finish off the trifecta of buffed abilities, we also have the Smash ability, which has its damage increased from 100 to 120% all the way up to 160 to 180%. Smash has a pretty short cooldown, and basically, whenever you're using the Ek-ZekKil, Smash all of a sudden goes from one of your worst abilities to one of your best abilities, and one that you're basically going to be wanting to use as often as it's available. In general, I like the concepts of the redesign. I like the idea of showing love to some lesser used abilities instead of adding a brand new effect, while there are so many melee abilities that exist that just aren't terribly useful. And I think the Pulverize one in particular is going to be really interesting, whether you're a newer melee PVMer that wants to take less damage, or you're someone that wants to impact your entire team. At the same time, the Flame-Bound Rival special attack seems ever so slightly underwhelming, and I'm wondering if after playing with it on Tuesday, I might feel like it's a little undertuned. At the same time though, conceptually, I think it's pretty cool to be able to permanently mark a target and say, you are my rival, I'm going to deal more damage to you, and I'm going to take less damage from you. It's an interesting idea, and I'm cool with it. In terms of how I think the new Ek-ZekKil is going to shake up the meta, I think it's pretty clear that Lang Swords are going to be really good in a short fight and when you're hybriding, because you will not have a chance to use the special attack and make a flamebound rival. At the same time, if you're in a longer boss fight where you're going to be on the same target for a long time, it seems like it's going to be worthwhile to use the Ek-ZekKil for any of the abilities that it works with. So you'll want to start off the fight by using the special attack, and then after that, you'll reap the benefits for the remainder of the fight. One last piece of information about the Ek-ZekKil that is pretty important is that if you have an Ek-ZekKil that is currently in an Essence of Finality, you do not need to buy another Ek-ZekKil. As it's having its effect changed, it's also going to be refunded to you from the Essence of Finality that you have it in. Next up, we've got an update to the Fractured Staff of Armadyl, because unlike all of the other legendary weapons in the game, the Fractured Staff of Armadyl doesn't have a passive. So, there's now a brand new passive called Surging Storm. This passive increases your critical strike damage by between 15 and 30% while wielding the Fractured Staff of Armadyl. It's also really important to note that that sounds absolutely insane, but this is an additive boost. So as an example, if you're level 90 magic or above, whenever you roll a critical strike, you're gonna normally deal 150% damage. With the Fractured Staff of Armadyl equipped, instead of dealing 150% damage, you'll be dealing between 165 and 180% damage on those crits. Thematically, this makes sense, and in terms of usefulness, the Fractured Staff of Armadyl is absolutely 100% back, and it is the weapon that you are going to want to have equipped while you're in your Sunshine rotation. If I were to guess how the meta is going to shake out, in a Sunshine, you're going to camp the Fractured Staff of Armadyl, and then once your Sunshine runs out, you're going to want to put on the Roar of Awakening and Ode to Deceit for the passive effects outside of Sun. In general, I think this is a pretty good change, and although it is a lot of power creep that is being added to Magic, I think it makes sense that it's good to actually equip the Fractured Staff of Armadyl and use it as opposed to making it just a special attack switch, which is more or less what it was before, while the Wand and the Orb had a passive effect and the Fractured Staff of Armadyl did not. So overall, I'm a fan of this change. After the Fractured Staff of Armadyl, we're actually not done yet, because there were also changes made to Tectonic and Elite Tectonic. For a while now, we've known that the devs haven't been the happiest with the idea that the best magic gear in the game in a lot of instances is Animacore of Sliskay that is empowered with Tuska. When you do this, you end up with an additional 6% critical strike chance, and basically, the very simple change that's been made here is now that critical strike passive has been passed on to Tectonic as well. So not only do you get the Tuska effect on Sliskay gear, but you actually also get it now on Elite Tectonic, where you'll get an extra 2% critical strike chance per piece you have equipped. This effect is halved on normal Tectonic for a total of 1% critical strike chance per piece. In general, this is a lot of power being added to Magic, because in the past, there was a pretty strong trade-off. The Animacore of Sliskay gear had no power bonus, and that also meant it didn't work with spells like Temporal Anomaly, and now we're just getting the best of all of the worlds with Elite Tectonic being able to do everything. You've got the crit chance, you've got the damage bonus, and it will also work with Temporal Anomaly. So this should be an absolutely massive boost to your Magic damage output, and I think overall in this update, Magic is by far getting the most extra juice here. I think with these two changes to Magic, it is now going to solidly be the second most powerful combat style in the game behind range. But unlike ranged, dealing good damage with Magic should be significantly easier. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if coming out of this update, Magic ends up being the style that the majority of players like to use, because ranging can be a little bit too complicated. So while ranging is probably going to remain the meta and nothing is going to touch it, I think Magic may end up becoming the casual player meta, where you want to deal a lot of damage, but you also don't want to have to spend the entire time switching ammo, switching amulets, and also counting your bulk stacks. For someone like me who already likes Magic and uses it as his favorite style, this is a lot of juice, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing around with it when it comes out. But we're not done yet, because there were also sweeping changes made to the Masterwork weapons. The Masterwork weapons were all updated to have a shared passive called Masterwork Mending. This is a very simple passive where your attacks are going to heal you for 2% of the damage dealt. And I'm actually really interested in this. These are already tier 100 weapons, and now when adding a powerful passive that's going to aid with sustain, they're going to carve out a really interesting niche for themselves, where I could see a lot of players really loving to use these weapons. Not only does this have implications for things like lower effort or AFK combat and Slayer, but it's also just going to be a general nice thing for upkeep, because endgame players who are proficient at soul split flicking don't really need to worry about their HP, but that's a pretty big if, and I think for a lot of players, that is a technique that takes a lot of time to get used to doing. So I could see a lot of players electing to learn new bosses with this Masterwork passive, knowing that you're going to get some extra HP back without having to worry about your overheads. In general, I think this is a really good change because it clearly carves out a niche that fits the Masterwork theme of this is making combat a little more accessible, it's easy to use, it's not very complicated, and it's got an an effect that, while being beneficial, isn't adding any end game power creep. So overall, I'm definitely happy with this change, and I'm pretty excited to see it come into the game. It's the kind of effect that would be handy to have on something like an Iron Man account, and definitely on my hardcore, I'm gonna pick out one of these 3 Masterwork weapons, and I'm definitely gonna go for it, because it's gonna be a nice, safe Slayer and lower tier boss weapon where I don't need to worry about my aura running out and then me dying. So yeah, those are the upcoming changes that are coming to RuneScape, and I'm pretty excited about it. Anytime there's new stuff coming into the game, I'm always really excited to test it out and play around with it, and it is no different here. This is one of the bigger combat meta shakeups that we've had in a very long time, and I cannot wait to sink my teeth into all the new stuff next week. I will also be making dedicated testing videos on all this new stuff when it comes out next week, but for now, I just wanted to cover the news post and what I think of the changes. But I also want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below, because this is a pretty big change. I think overall I'm pleased, and there's nothing in here that I'm terribly mad about, but I will say Magic is getting a lot of power creep out of this, and I think it's kind of justified in the sense that Elite Tectonic probably should have always had this effect, and the Fractured Staff of Armadyl probably should have always had this passive, so from that sense, it fits and it makes sense, but it is a lot of power creep on a day when we're not getting a new boss or a new difficult thing to try it out on. With that said though, I'd love to know what you guys think. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon for the next video.